Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Friday. We made it to Friday. I'm dancing. Got a 4-dayer here. I'm ready to enjoy it with the fam. Hope you're having a good week and ready for the weekend. I have got Mike Carey with me. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Doing good. Mike is one of the hosts, I believe, of the One Good Reason. Did I do that right? I screwed it up. After all that practice, the One Good Reason
Yes, sir.
on Facebook and YouTube.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I tear up the intro every morning. It's a thing. Actually, I'm not supposed to say this, but they pay me extra to do that, to mess up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So
it's a nice side hustle.
yeah. One of these days, I'm not going to mess up the introduction. And people are going to be like, oh, who's that? And what have they done with Chris? So that's just how it is. How are you doing this morning? Are you ready for the weekend?
I am. I feel like I'm on a constant weekend, with this whole coronavirus thing, but it's, I'm still working. It's just, everything's very relaxed. So it's just kind of bringing on more of the same, except now I don't have anything to occupy my oodles of time. So
yeah. I totally understand. I want to say hi to the people in the chat this morning. We've got quite a few people there. Ethan is here this morning. Ethan, Kristin, Brainbug's picking on me because I'm short. I guess I should. And there's the One Good Reason. Yes. Good morning. Derek Cruz. Good morning, Derek. How are you doing today? I hope you guys are ready for the weekend. Thank you for being such an awesome group of people in the chat. So I've got this guy. He's from this podcast. Mike, if you don't mind, would you take a few minutes and tell us about it, familiarize, because you've learned this morning. I don't know enough about it. Can you tell my people about your show?
Yeah, sure. So the One Good Reason is a cooperative project focused on epistemology,
Okay.
the study of knowledge and how we determine what's true, and just kind of looking at your method on how you went through your investigation and got to your conclusion. So we talk about a lot of different topics. For example, we've went from the topic of love to authority and subordinate roles, something more fun like distant minds, talking about possible consciousness, living elsewhere in the cosmos. You might call them aliens. We've talked about things a little bit more heartfelt, like apology and forgiveness, for example. And we talk to kind of the layman in colloquial terms, not necessarily experts in any said field. We like to talk to basically random people and get a feel for what it's like to be human in their shoes, and see if they actually understand why they do the things that they do, or why they think the things that they think, and so on. I was talking to Richard Madsen a couple days ago, and I gave a quick example of something kind of fun and not super deep, but it was like the whole idea of, hey, what do you call this part of your mouth? All right, the roof of your mouth. And I would say, well, wouldn't this be the roof and this be the ceiling? And they would say, yeah, sure. And I would say, okay, well, now that we agree that there's this nonsensical statement that you're using, you could call it the top of your mouth, right? You still get that one syllable. It's less letters to write. Are you going to start calling it the top of your mouth? Are you going to pivot from what you used to do? And a lot of the time they'll say, no, I'm going to still call it the roof of my mouth. And I'll say, well, why is that? They'll say, well, I don't want people to be confused, thinking this is, I'm talking about my upper lip or something like this. It would take too long to explain. So I'm just going to continue saying the thing that I was saying. So that's what we like to highlight, that even though you figured out what you're doing maybe might not make sense, there might be some pressure there to conform with the general consensus, and being able to step away from that and examine what you're doing, and you might even have to diverge from the group. So that's basically what we do on any given topic. Religion is one of those topics that come up in this type of self-analysis. And it pretty much works the same way with that as well, regardless of the denomination or theism or deism. We can really distill down where they're coming from and kind of find the flaws, the logical fallacies in their train of thought. And a lot of the time we get the actual interlocutor, or the actual person in the discussion, to kind of mention their own issues, like their own issues in their style of thinking, just by kind of this I don't want to say Bogosian style, but kind of in this Socratic method and just free flowing conversation. It'll eventually come out of their mouths that there might be an issue with what they're saying or what they're believing. But yeah,
Gotcha.
but I work with Xavier Hayes and John Hoskins for about 3 years now, from 2017 on this
See,
project.
odd that I would just topped out. Who is your partner and how long have you been doing this? That was my next question. So those were questions for down the way, actually, but you answered them. But that's
Oh,
okay.
awesome.
I will
Yeah.
answer and I will probably ask again. So let me get you this one though. Have you had a lot of people? Because that was a great analogy. That was wonderful. The roof of your mouth, top of your mouth, the ceiling of your mouth, as it were.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of people who went, you're right. I think I'm going to change and start calling it. You know what I mean by example. Have you had people change their minds based on your conversations?
Yes, and it is few and far between, but having the actual evidence that this can happen, kind of puts the battery in my back to continue. Um, we've, and remember, that was something very light. So I have had very deep, very intense conversations with people. I won't say their names on here, but for example, there was somebody who was very distraught. Their self-esteem was completely smashed as far as their religion was concerned, and this was something that they were raised to hold value in. And they had this trichotomy, we'll call it, where they said, okay, I can either let go of myself as far as my personality, I can let go of the religion, or I can let go of my life. And I had a very long conversation with this person multiple times, and was successful in getting them to let go of the religion versus, you know, the other two options as far as their life, first and foremost, and then, of course, their personality. Rebuilding their self-worth and looking at themselves as a human being, and, is their life having value. Um, and just kind of starting anew, and being able to look back at those times as kind of misguided, or at least unnecessary ways of experiencing their life. That person, was gay, and was still, giving the death grip to the religion. So instead of being able to look at the book in and of itself as being an issue, they were more willing to focus that critique on themselves.
Right.
And again, everybody's different, but this person, um, over time, it was getting closer and closer and more imminent to, um, well, I think you get the idea here.
Yeah. Not a good outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, very successful with that. I'm very happy about that. I bring it up all the time just because it was something that I feel very proud about, as far as showing them, hey, you don't necessarily need this to feel good about yourself, and to not just feel good about yourself, but to do good things. And let me show you some of the things that humans are able to do. That people like yourself, I would assume, are happy to, go out and maybe feed the homeless, or whatever it may be on your humanist checklist. Like, there are things that we can do, and we don't necessarily need a god, for example, to authorize it, or give us the ability to do.
Right.
And that was over the course of a few years, mind you. But yeah, so we do get people. We just had somebody 2 days ago,
Mhm.
um, who was struggling going between Christianity and being self-labeling themselves an agnostic, even though I don't think that's a middle ground position. But they would slide back and forth between religion and agnosticism, atheism, and they went back to Christianity. I think a few months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. And they happened to be in the audience while I was talking with, I think Justin Downing, the
Mm.
empathetic atheist, and we were having a great conversation. And he happened to be in the audience. And he was watching, and then afterward there was an after party, and he joined that after party, and then we continued the discussion. And I think literally a few, maybe an hour after, he put a public posting out saying that he's no longer a Christian. He's stepping away from Christianity. He's not going to. I mean, it's still a slow process. I mean, he's saying he's not labeling himself anything right now. He's just going by his birth name. This is who I am. But yeah, I mean, we're making an impact. We are making an impact, and that's not our goal to just get you to give up your religion and chuck it in the garbage.
Right, right.
We understand that people hold value in these things, and they influence their lives as far as their family, their friends, or you name it. What we want people to do is to be given the tools to just basically examine their beliefs. Or I'll speak for myself. I am highly opposed to what I call enemies of reason. That could be the more benign nature of being intellectually dishonest,
Right.
or that could be more of a robust version of this, which is somebody who's enticing others
Right.
to partake in behavior that could be detrimental to their health, or cause harm to other people. So if you're going around, Chris, and saying that you believe clouds are made out of marshmallow, that's not a big deal for me. I mean, that's a little sad that you think that, but that's fine. If you start telling people, battery acid consumption is good for your health, I'm going to have a problem with that. You and I are going to have a very serious conversation. You know,
Mm.
so that's basically the difference. If you're cherry picking through your religion and finding good stuff, and and you're demonstrably being able to show that this is for the well-being of other humans, more power to you. I'm not going to call you a false Christian or a false Muslim or whatever it is.
Right.
Um, if you're espousing, like, again, ideas that somebody in that conversation is being harmed, that's what we're going to go up against, and we're going to ask, how did you get to a position where somebody must be harmed in whatever this scenario is? But yes, so not to run on here, but yeah,
Oh,
that's
no.
basically, those are examples of success, and what in the type of things that we look for to combat and get aggressive about.
I want to take a second. We've got some more people
Yeah.
showing up in the chat. Paul Cammish, I don't know if I did it. Good morning, Paul. Nice to see you. Saw your bike ride thing. I need to get back on the bike riding because I'm getting old. I'm going to die if I don't start working out.
All right, it's
Neil,
over here.
Neil, the 604 atheist. Have you ever heard of Neil? Have you heard of Neil?
Oh, yes, sir.
Have you been on his show yet?
We talked about it. I think we're planning something to be in
Okay.
July.
Okay.
Yeah, he had some availabilities in June, but my life sucks, and I wasn't able to make that happen. So
I understand. No, that's completely understandable. That's awesome that you already know him, because my next question is, were you a Christian? How did you become an atheist, and these kind of questions? But if you go too much into it, Neil will bust through my wall like the Kool-Aid man and go, "That's my territory." So, can you give me the short version?
Yeah, short version is no. I was never religious. I never believed in any deity.
Easy.
Try and try as they might. No, never.
Never fell for
Um,
it. Okay, good.
no, I
Okay.
did have
Cradle atheist sort of situation.
cradle. Oh, that's pretty funny. Cradle atheist. Yeah, I guess you could say that. But that doesn't mean I'm some super smart guy, or some special guy or anything. That's no knock to theists. I did fully, completely, wholeheartedly, head over heels believe in Santa Claus.
Okay.
I wanted to go and live and work at the North Pole, and I wanted to help make toys for kids, and bathe the deer and feed the deer, or the reindeer. And I really thought this was real. And
Okay.
when I was exposed to it not being real, of course, I had a dramatic reaction to that.
Were
So
you in
that's
your
the closest I
30s?
can get to. Yeah. Yesterday, I found out yesterday. No, but yeah, But yeah, when
That
I
just
when I
last
when I
week.
found, yeah, this is last week. I still have the tree and no, no,
The
but
hoof sharpening tools. Kristen, best name ever, would like to know at what age that you discovered this.
I think I was 9 or
I'm glad you
8,
didn't say
8 or
19. There'd be
8 or
like a
9.
Jeff Foxworthy, joke where he's like, my kid's outside going, airplane, airplane. He's like, bro, that boy's 15.
Yeah, that'd be a great movie. It'd be like the 40-year-old virgin, except it'd be like he never found out Santa didn't exist.
Yeah, well, I think we've Elf.
Yeah, oh yeah, there you go.
The movie Elf, yes. So let me ask you real quick. So what was there something that made you kind of become an activist in this direction? Was there something religion did, or did what kind of set you moving in this direction as far as asking these kind of hard questions?
Well, I used to be very selfish about it and just kind of be. I've heard the term like atheist. Just kind of like that's an issue for you guys. Kind of not to knock anyone here if they are calling themselves atheists, but I've kind
I've
of
heard the
progressed from
term.
that. I've kind of progressed from kind of that position as looking at it to be, and again, don't hate me too much, kind of an arrogant position or kind of an apathetic position. When you live in a society where these types of conversations are influencing, your surroundings on a day-to-day basis, so you really should get involved in that sense. But what
Please explain for our folks the difference between an atheist and an atheist, if you would.
well, so my usage of atheist is just a lack of belief in a
Okay.
God. I'm sure you've heard that colloquially used
Absolutely.
before. It's not so much the philosophical definition that asserts there is no God.
Of course, we're not
Um,
going into that fight. Been
yeah.
there. I understand. No, carry on.
Okay. So yeah, then the atheist is kind of that. Well, I don't believe in it, but there's not really any point in having the conversations. It's kind of just an apathetic approach to. I just keep it to myself. I don't
Oh,
bother engaging in any conversation. So the exact opposite of what we're doing now is that,
gotcha.
so, and I look at that as kind of, I get where you might feel that way. It's just, again, if you live in a society where in God we trust is on the dollar. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're constantly smuggling these things in your daily life. So
Absolutely.
if you want to make any types of changes, you're gonna have to have conversations. Just
Yeah.
like I mentioned, this other guy, like yesterday or 2 days ago, within an hour after our after party, was posting on his Facebook, "I'm not a Christian anymore."
Right.
Um, but as far as what got me interested in doing it, I had that conversation with a really good friend of mine. Feel that way. I've known him for a very long time. We were at the beach here in Florida, and it's just weird. It just kind of came up, and he said, "Hey, aren't you worried about being raped forever and being shish kebabbed and slashed and you're gnashing of teeth and fingernails being pulled out, and doesn't that ever go through your mind? And aren't you worried about this? I mean, the whole kind of the Pascal's wager kind of thing."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, "Because I worry about you," and it was kind of ruining the beach vibe. We're drinking some
No
beers,
doubt. Yeah.
we're chilling. So I didn't want to dodge. I was just kind of looking at the waves, and I just said, we'll just call him John Smith for the example.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm like, John, imagine that there's a monster that lives in the ocean and it only eats people named John. Okay. And people, everyone else is fine, but people like you who are named John are targets for this monster. Even if you legally change your name, it'll still know that you were a John. And I said, imagine
Good
it's
answer.
invisible, it's weightless, it's scentless, it's inaudible, etc. Right? And I said, there's no way to differentiate between that and something that doesn't exist altogether. And there, you could either never come to the beach again and just change your Florida lifestyle, drastically, or you could go to the beach, just not go in the water, but run the risk of it maybe, stalking you on the beach and killing you, right?
Right.
Or you could continue to go into the water because you have no way to, again, to differentiate between that and something that doesn't exist. Continue to go in the water as you were before I told you this. And until you have a good reason to think that there's something in the water, that would be the time to react.
Yeah. A
And I
John
said, so
monster.
Exactly. So I said, so in that light, I mean, you're talking about this hell, and in this, can we, I don't know, dig and find it, or how do you go about detecting where the hell is or what's going on? And it came down to I don't know. After about a half an hour conversation, I said, okay, well, if you don't know, I mean, if that's the best that you can come up with, um, and you're saying, "Well, why aren't I worried?" Well, that's why I'm not worried, because you don't have any way to demonstrate this. I said, why are you worried about it? And again, that turned into I don't know. So after doing that enough times, and each of these conversations coming down to we don't have a good reason, I said, hey, why don't I start a project called The One Good Reason, and we'll
You
we'll
know,
talk to a bunch of people about this kind of stuff.
that's a great way to go. I was stimulated by a friend to move towards activism. A friend of mine, we were, he went really, I showed up one day back in town and he'd gone really far to the Christian right, holding signs saying, talk to me about Jesus down on Central, kind of thing. And that's what
Yeah.
pushed me from just being your casual guy walking down the street who doesn't believe, an atheist, I guess, not by name, but
Okay.
by nature, to an activist atheist out and out, you're wrong. You're an idiot for being wrong. That kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm not terribly eloquent.
That,
Hard
everyone
to
has
be.
their own style.
Yeah. When you're waving your arms and you're yelling at folks, everybody else. Yeah, but that was kind of the same, kind of went that way. But that's a kind of a good analogy. And I've heard the whole thing too, but let's run back through that again. All right. So let's talk about your merciful, loving God who forgives all and who just drips with peace. And he created this place where you're going to burn in fire and they're going to pull your nails off and they're going to do, I mean, what kind of creature would make a place?
A
You
lot
know?
of the response he would give is, you send yourself there. So it's like you get dressed up, and you get
Huh?
in your car, and you go to work, and you go into the hell elevator, and
Yeah.
you select your Dante's Inferno level that you want,
Right.
and you say, no, I want 27 rapists, and I would like 2 nipple twisters, and whatever it is that like you're sending yourself there, and
I know which
and
buttons I'm pushing.
yeah, and it's like you're it's like no, you're why can't you say that if there is such a place, how is it that how is it that you learned about this? How
Right.
how did you come to? Because you're able to tell me about it. So who gave you the information? And if it comes back to this book is telling me the information, then I mean you're a smart guy, Chris. We can look at the book and say, well, why should I take on these specific portions of the book? Because I can look at Spider-Man and say, yes, New York City exists,
Mhm.
spiders exist, people named Peter Parker probably exist who live in New York and
Clearly,
are
yeah.
photographers, or we can find all of the correlations with reality, but that doesn't mean that Spider-Man is climbing on walls and fighting supervillains.
Right.
Even if in the year 3000 they find the ruins of New York and find Spider-Man costumes from Spencer's, um, this doesn't lend credence to someone actually being bit by a radioactive spider and having these adventures and things.
Well,
Um,
actually, yes, it would. Yeah, it says right here in the book. I mean, and it's not just that one
right,
book.
right,
We've
right.
got dozens of books from all around the city that have different stories that tell different adventures about this guy. It's got
We
to
got
be
Scarlet, yeah,
true.
Scarlet Spider. We got the Spider-Man 2099. You got all
Yeah.
these different,
Yeah.
which is canon, and
And
was
he's
he with
coming
Mary
back
Jane or
someday.
yeah, he's yeah, and we're being mugged by somebody in the alley, and should you fight back or should you wait for Spider-Man to come and save you? And these type of things.
Yeah.
And when Spider-Man doesn't save you, it's because he was saving somebody else, and he was just a little
Right.
busy right then.
Or you were just not worthy of being saved. I always got to consider that.
He thought you were one of the muggers, and they're just mugging themselves or something.
Yeah, well, you
Yeah.
did something wrong. You touched yourself 6 years ago, and Spider-Man sees all. He's got this tingly sense. Didn't you read the ancient tomes?
Right.
Right. I mean,
See,
I'm just going with it.
I
I'm
like
just going
to.
with it.
Yeah, I love to get into the abilities. That's kind of one of my main things, to be honest. I like to talk about omniscience. The general idea, okay, that I come across is that, and again, everybody's different, okay, but the general idea that I come across is that the deity is omniscient and knows all things, okay,
Okay.
including its own actions.
Yes.
So the issue that I have with this is, and again, this is the type of deity that is eternal and outside of time and timeless and these type of things. Well, the issue I have with this is if that deity knows what it's going to do before it does it, say, let there be light or create the earth or create humans. If it knows what it's going to do before it creates that action, when it's presented with that opportunity between, like, let's say Coke and Pepsi, if it knows it's going to drink the Coke, if it says, well, even though I knew I was going to drink the Coke, I still have the option, I'm going to drink Pepsi, then it really didn't know its future, right?
Or it really
It
didn't
has,
have an option.
right, it has to do it. It has to drink the Coke. And when I mention this, people say, well, I mean, it could just change its mind. It could just change its future and change those options to Mountain Dew or whatever it wanted, or two Pepsis, or or however it wanted to get out of that situation. And I say, well, in order for it to do that, it would have to know it was going to change
Yes.
what it knew it would know before it knew it would know it.
It would have known that it was going to change to Mountain Dew.
Right. So it's still doing the thing it knows
Yeah.
that it's going to do.
There's a little bit of a
And
logical loop there.
correct. And I've had one retort saying, well, a computer can do that. You know, anything that a computer can do, it knows.
Okay.
So I said,
Yeah.
okay, so a computer can change what it's going to know. And they said, yes. And I said, okay, what with intent? How would it know to change this thing it needs to if it doesn't know it needs to change that thing?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in those
another,
cases, to compare a computer knowing the difference and an omniscient, omnipotent God, that's, you know what I mean? And I've often heard that too. And then there's God coming into places and going, Adam and Eve, where are you? Because it can't find them. You know?
right.
There's a lot of various different situations throughout the text where God doesn't know something, or clearly, I mean, the Bible is the worst thing to pin your hopes on as far as order and what do you call it? What's that word?
order and justice.
No, non-conflict, non-contradictory.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is contradictory. It contradicts itself all over the place. It's the book of lies. I want to mention that Pastor James Taylor, James Taylor. Can you sing me a song? Pastor Taylor James wanted to say that it was him and another literalist who converted James to atheism, and he has screenshots to prove it. That may be true, Pastor James. I'm not trying to get in the middle of this. I just want to point out that Mike did say that the person he was talking about had gone from being an atheist to being a Christian to being an atheist, being a
Yeah.
Christian, and you both could possibly be correct. I don't know if you were there at the beginning.
I'll give it up. I'll give it up to Pastor Taylor James.
Yes.
If he's a pastor and having a conversation with somebody made them an atheist, then keep on doing your work, Pastor.
Carry on, good sir.
Yeah,
If only there were more like you.
Yeah, the other thing I get into is I like to talk about the origin of choice.
Yeah.
And in philosophy, there's a distinction between the concept of free will, okay, and free choice. So just like we were talking about earlier, making a selection between, we'll say at minimum, two options. You'll weigh out your pros and cons, and you'll pizza or cheeseburger or whatever it is, and then you'll commit and you'll make a selection. Well, the issue I have with that is the actual options themselves.
Okay.
So those options, you're not choosing for them to be available in the first place, right? Just like, for example, when
You
you go
don't
to the
add your
grocery
own
store.
options?
Right, you're correct. You're not deciding, like when you go to the grocery store, for example, right? The options might already be there on the shelves, and this is just as an analogy. But yet you'll tell yourself that you're choosing of the available options. So you're not truly choosing, and even if you were to vote for what was put in the grocery store, there would be influences and experiences that would lead you to make those selections that you would like to propose for the grocery store to have. So there's always this infinite regress of something that's causing you to act, right? Something that's causing you to choose your preferences and your wants, right? That you don't choose. You don't choose your next idea. It kind of pops and generates randomly, right? Like a lotto ball. And then
So
you
does that
react
make,
and respond to it.
are we responsible for our actions if we don't choose
I
our
love how you use the
decisions?
word responsible. I love how you use the word responsible. So we can trace the breadcrumbs to, let's say, this rapist and say this person
Right. Did he
cause
decide
this.
to do this, or did this like ethereal bubbleness of nothingness just kind of pop these notions into his head against his will?
I would say the brain that he did not choose at the brain dealership is working, is working in such a way, right? He's starting with faulty equipment. He's starting with a lemon.
I'm
Okay,
taking mine
this
back.
person, yeah, this this person has a lemon to keep it funny here, right? They have faulty equipment. Now
Mhm.
that same brain. So let's say that brain and my brain go through the exact same experiences and have the exact same influences, right? We're both held in a room that's playing Metallica for 6 hours, right? or something. For these two brains go through the same experiences. Because the mediums to which this information is being processed are different, we can get two different outcomes. So the influence and experience can be identical, but the actual medium, the actual brain itself, is going to process that stuff differently. So I don't want to say blame that person as being a rapist, right? Because that sounds very
Right.
negative, but we can say this was an outcome produced by your brain. So if you want to say, yes, they were determined to go out and rape somebody, then you and myself would be determined to be opposed to that. And we've identified those brains as faulty and not being a positive effect on the society, and we've locked them away to separate them from the general
Right.
populace.
Well, that's just something that I've kind of heard a little bit about this. Whether you make a decision or how those kind of come up. It's something I heard Sam Harris talking about, but it's been a while. It's on the periphery that I haven't focused on. It's do I think for myself, or does some mysterious void think for me? Um, where are those decisions? I've heard that philosophical school of thought over here. I just haven't had the
Mhm.
time to peer at it enough and go,
It's
what's
it's
going
really it's
on?
really really awesome. It's really awesome because um, and I should say as an air of caution here, you know, people get the idea that okay, that makes us robots or that we're puppets on strings. And my response to that is, I mean, whether you're on strings or not, you're going to love your wife, you're going to smoke your smokes, you're going to drink your booze, you're going to go on, you're going to continue on. Um,
Because
so,
the
but yeah,
puppet
you
master that's pulling my strings likes to masturbate a lot.
right, or whatever it
What's
is,
up with
right? And
that?
the moment you can demonstrate that you're lining up your ideas and selecting the next idea,
Hmm.
which is a paradox because you'd be choosing to choose,
Right.
which is the question that I asked the theist, the origin of choice. I say, did your deity create choice or the manifestation of that period of indeterminacy, which their deity won't have a period of indeterminacy if it's omniscient. But anyway, a lot of them will say, yes, my deity did create choice. And my
Oh,
follow-up to that is, did it choose to?
I'm still trying to work out the no deity involved part of choice. Are
Yeah,
our decisions sort of like a Plinko game of thought? So this Plinko pump 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 pump, somewhere it's going to end up in this bucket down here that says, go to the store. Somewhere it's going to end up
correct.
over here that says, yell at your mom. You know?
And those plinks that are moving the ball are your
Yes.
influences and experiences.
Are they influences or are they chemical reactions based
Well,
on
yeah,
the
they
structure of your individual brain?
correct. So exactly,
And both,
exactly.
I
So
guess,
so
probably.
both, right? So it's like
I'm not as dumb as I look.
exactly. Yeah, you're really opening a great conversation here. So if you look at like your car, right? Whether it runs well or efficiently, I should say, not to sound you know
I understand.
right. So if the car is running efficiently or it's not running efficiently, right, can then be exponentially amplified or worsened by adding water to the gas tank, right, or adding whatever you want. So you have the two the two influences, I should say.
Mhm.
The actual thing operating is the brain, and then you have to actually input the influences in the experience. So just like that Plink ball, I love that because you have maybe the actual brain here, and then you have the ideas that are bouncing around based on, hey, this guy yelled at me, or this person cut me off in traffic, or this person gave me roses when my family member died, or whatever it is. And then now you have this want or this preference, whether that's your food or your music or how you dress yourself or where you shop or all of this stuff.
Mhm.
And if you were to completely remove any influence or experience, I don't know what that would look like, but if you had zero
Yeah.
influence or experience in just the brain in and of itself. Um, I think the only way you could compare that to anything would be if you were dead or to never have been born at all, because the moment the brain starts working, there's influence and experience going on at
Or
all times.
even in utero, I would just,
Yeah, so that would be the only way to prevent the rapist from raping people, would be to not have the influences or experiences that would lean them to that tendency or that propensity to do that.
well, no. I'm not. I follow all of that. It's a matter of laying the responsibility. Did he decide to do this? If he didn't decide to do this, if he didn't do it, then should we punish him for something he didn't do? I mean, he did it, but he didn't.
I totally agree with you. Is
There's
that
that line
yeah?
of responsibility in there.
I
You're
don't think
responsible for
locking
your
them
own
up.
thoughts and actions and words. At some point,
Spot.
at what?
You're spot on. You're totally spot on. I don't think locking them up is the best thing to do. I think that's the best we've come up with. But
Oh, right.
as far as the responsibility, yeah, I would say yes. They decided it in that sense. But again, it's being a little bit more generous to what's going on and just looking at they didn't. You can't point to them saying they decided to have this pedophilia lace in
Of
brain
course,
or yeah. So
but they do decide to act on them. That's the difference.
well, they can't choose their wants or their
But they
preferences,
can choose their actions.
but the choice of those actions are driven by the wants and the preferences.
I
So
understand.
that's kind of the thing, is that you can't choose. Don't look at it like abstention from acting uh, is choosing, because even the abstention of doing something, like somebody that chose not to smoke, let's say somebody that
Hmm.
quit smoking, or they see their friends smoking and they're like, hey, you want to smoke? And they say, no, I'm going to choose not to smoke because that's
Hmm.
bad. Um, that person is still reacting to the collection of influences and experiences that they've had up to that given point. Um, so I don't know, it's hard to.
I'm not trying to
I
be argumentative at all. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, I understand what they're talking about, where these ideas that kind of pop into our fronds come from. Franz, a Stargate riff. Where they come in to pop into our heads. It pops in randomly from this ethereal ooze that, it's
Mm,
like this blackness of ooze that just pops into our brain. But now I've got this blackness of ooze. There's two different me sitting here. One me is sitting here and it says, grab and throw this cup of coffee against the wall. And the other one gets that same urge, but doesn't do it. The
mm.
brain has said to do it, but the conscious mind has said, not the smartest thing to do. I like the coffee. Don't like the cup. Coffee's okay. You know what I mean? I'm just saying at some point there's the difference between thought and action, and responsibility lies between the two. Why, when somebody's born a pedophile or gay, or not that I'm equating those two, please don't think I'm doing that at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nobody, chat, don't think I'm doing
No, no,
but you
he's
know what I
not.
mean?
He's not.
Whenever they're born with sexual proclivities they cannot control,
Mhm.
that's not their fault. If somebody is born and they are sexually attracted to telephone poles, that's not their fault. If they hump telephone poles, that's their fault. They chose to go. Of course, again, we have the illusion of choice. I have the illusion of, can I choose to hump a telephone pole or can I not choose to hump? That's the illusion. Of course, then you can
Oh,
give yourself more choices. Can it be a telephone pole or just any pole, or does it, fence pole and banister pole?
chain link fence. The whole.
Anyway,
Uh,
yeah, it's just that's kind of what I'm talking about. There's the ethereal bubble from which these thoughts arrive, in which we don't really know. Like you said, you can't line up the thoughts. But then there's also the matter of responsibility of your actions, and somewhere
I
between there
agree with
lies
that.
that. That's all.
That's, that's the
And
best we can do. We have to have some kind of accountability, even if we understand that it maybe not be 100% this person's fault because they didn't choose to exist for example, or they didn't choose to exist on the earth. They didn't choose to be Caucasian or whatever.
all true.
Um, you know, all that's true. So, but at the same time, that's not a license to you know go out and pillage and rape and these type of things. We have to
It would
identify them.
appear it is. I mean, if we went based on
Technically,
history,
yes. Technically, yes. But
based
the
on the
the,
evidence, it would.
the determined response is to.
No, of course.
It kind of sucks. It's like we're still blaming them for even though understanding that we shouldn't blame them.
Of course.
But
No, you're right. You're right. You know, sometimes I do it for funny. Sometimes I'm just being a jerk. No, I do get it. That's just one of those things. Like I said, I remember Sam Harris talking about this. So I've heard about it a while, and I'd once thought about this science fiction kind of story where, you know, there is a person above you who runs you, who comes up with those thoughts and puts those thoughts into what you know, imagine if that person who ran you up there could actually talk and communicate with other people in the group that ran other stuff. And, you know, normally it's a no, but they started doing it. You know what I mean? And then you'd have telepathy or whatever.
oh yeah, the human cloud, where
Something like that.
somebody crosses the street and gets hit by a car, they can upload that to the cloud, and then now we're all a little bit smarter. You know?
Something like that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, and then you would think that your subconscious, I'm going to give that the cute little name for that place where all these things come from, the little bubbly etherverse.
Oh yeah, Twitter.
Yeah, I'll just call it the subconscious for fun. So your subconscious would receive better messages. Oh, hey, don't go across the street, you know? Or, you know, the lottery numbers next week will be, because, you know, the guy who's in charge of that part of, you know, it's crazy. I'm crazy. I'll be okay.
The subconscious is probably looking like Pier 1 imports, you know. It's probably got cuddly flowers and suggestions on Mother's Day cards right next to the pile of scat feces that you'd like to be dumped on your chest, you know. And your subconscious is probably just full of all of the influences that never actually made it to your conscious, you know, mind in the forefront, in the frontal lobe. But
absolutely. Well, I'm just whenever you talk about things, that's exactly correct. You know, I mean, you've got all this right beside this, and they're just so comfortable sitting beside each other. Birthday card for mom. Anyway, yeah. So there's this. Let's see. Gary Priestley says, "I prefer to say that I act as if I have free choice." That makes it an interesting. I find that a tough deal. Do I think my thoughts? Does somebody else think my thoughts for me? Who is that somebody else if they do? Obviously, we mean like a subconscious or a combination of chemicals and experiences, stuff like that. Yeah. There's not actually a body. It's not like there's an evil little Chris sitting on my shoulder going, well, now's a good time.
How about
there's lotion, yeah. There's a handkerchief. What more could you want?
I think I agree with the way that he phrased that. When I think of the word I, like when I'm mentioning myself, for me personally, I'm thinking of this as a collection of everything that's been donated to me from others, right? Experiences and influences, and of course my brain, and that is the I of myself that no one else can experience. Even if you have those same exact, like we said earlier, even if you have the exact same experiences and influences throughout your life, and we're the same age down to the nanosecond, because of the two different brains, you know, that's the difference right there. You know, just that's the fundamental difference. So when I say I'm talking about that unique experience given those same influences and experiences. And that doesn't just come from me. Again, that's coming from even himself or just in this interaction. And it's constantly causing your next action to be different, the more information that comes in. So those people that go to jail, yeah, that might be determined, but it also might be determined that they'll go to counseling, and that might be determined that the counseling will have a positive outcome, you know, and so on. But
yeah, well, it's one of those, we're thinking about thinking. That's a lot of thinking. It's like
about thinking about thinking.
That's exactly right. It's like what's that movie called? The Hmong People. You know what I'm talking about. One where the thing is inside the thing is inside. It's one of those things. We're like the little Russian doll of thought.
Yeah, processes. I was just going
to say that. So, yeah. So there's a lot to be unpacked from the whole notion of self and desire, will, all those things. Now we've kind of covered some of that, because remember earlier I was like, I'm having enough trouble just figuring out me and myself. Right now, let's toss a God in there. Vengeful, petty, angry, small-minded, racist, misogynistic, God written by syphilis-infested desert worshippers who like to listen to the sounds of camels mate. Let's throw that kind of God in there. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
what is it? Is it the Quran or the Hadith that tells them to drink camel urine? Which one is it? I think it's the Hadith.
The Hadith would be kind of the.
I know what they are. I'm just saying, which one do we get that? I don't remember which one it is. Anyway, you know what I'm saying?
Might be the Hadith.
Whenever we stop, and now we've got that little bubbling ether. What do we call it? We gave it a good word. I made it up all by myself. Subconscious.
Yeah, Plink, subconscious. Yeah.
We've got that little subconscious there going on, and then you throw a God in there. And that subconscious, there's a thought that comes down that little plinko, plink, 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 plink. And you're like, oh, that's God talking to me. Instead of just being the plinko game of thought and consciousness. Right. That confuses shit.
It totally went from, plink, 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 next Cheeto in the bag.
Right. To behead them, cut off their fingertips. I'm sorry. I went there. And I went there fast. Inception.
And that's why I ask, does when your deity is deciding to, or see, I'm loading the question, but when your deity in the story creates the earth, is it choosing to create the earth, or is it being forced to do it because of its omniscience or its own abilities? And that's a tough question that seems to be becoming more and more known. The more I bring it up is I want to know if your God makes choices.
Yeah.
Does it, because on the one hand, there's no period of indeterminacy. It knows what it's going to do, and it does it. It doesn't have to say, should I flood the earth or should I not? It already knows the outcome.
I think part of the underlying thing is it not only does it make choices, it makes your choices for you as part of their.
That would logically follow. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, because if it would obviously be the great choice maker. If I'm not doing it,
the ultimate influence.
Yeah. And, but then let's go by that. If that's the case, then in the beginning, God meant for me to do everything I'm going to do, all the sin. Yeah. I mean, if it knew in the beginning, then why do all this? It's just this crazy. Well, what we're trying to do, we're trying to apply reason and logic to stories and a creature and the abilities of a creature that were created thousands of years ago by people that were extremely uneducated, based by our standards of the day. Even if they were educated by their standards of the day, there's lots of things that by their standards of the day means nothing to me. Where in the story does it tell you to boil your water or anything useful like that of that nature?
Suck the wound and spit it out.
That right. It does not tell you to not have sex with your family members. It does not. It does not tell you, those kind. Does it say anywhere in the Bible incest is bad?
No.
I'm just asking the chat there. Pastor James is in there. He's throwing things out. All right. So I said it. I said Inception. There was words inside of words, and the people were picking on me in the chat because I'm short. They weren't really because I'm not short. But anyway, so I finally said it. And Pastor James says it was the Hadith. So those kind of things going on that logic, where do we end up with that?
You end up with between you and myself and the viewers. I think you end up with worshiping, whether you admit it or not, worshiping determinism. But you're personifying it, you're anthropomorphizing determinism is what you're doing. And I can't blame them, right? We already got through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to make sure that you have to make sure that you're an actual influence or experience within their lives that could possibly have an outcome to get them to pivot from thinking this way or get them to let these types go.
Well, real quick, I just want to, if you don't mind, pardon the interruption.
Yeah, sure.
The question Native Atheist says, didn't incest have to happen after Noah's flood? Well, actually, we start with incest with Adam and Eve. They had 2 sons, and then either the sons had to do mama to get more kids, or the dad did mama to get daughters, who then had to have sex with the sons. Either way, there was a little bit of Southern loving going on. That's all I'm saying. And then
it's kind of a closed network there, huh?
Yes, very closed.
Hey,
And
but there's all those animals out there. You never know if they, you get some
well, they did
kangaroos or
clearly they took a long, hard look at sheep and goats. Anyway, so then we have Noah and Noah's family.
short and soft.
And there was, there had to have been some incest involved in that to repopulate the earth. Then we go down 10 generations, I believe. I could be mistaken. 10 generations, it tells us in the Bible. We go from Noah to Abraham, the father of the Abrahamic religion. The father of the Abrahamic religion, his brother, he had two brothers. One of them had a son and a daughter. Then he died. And his brother, Abraham's brother, married his dead brother's daughter. So that's incest right there.
Bastard.
That bastard. And then actually we come to find out later, it says that Abram married Sarai and this dude married his dead brother's daughter. Then we learn in chapter 20 that Sarai is actually Abraham's sister. So it's all incest, all through the Bible. There's the Pastor James, thank you very much. His half sister. Yeah. So there's incest all through the Bible. That's just the beginning, And then there's the murder, death, kill. You know who the Canaanites are, right?
Yeah, the Canaanites.
They're bad. Actually, you know who they are, though, really? They're descendants of Canaan, who is the son of Ham, who saw Noah naked. That's all that Noah and his sons were the chosen of the earth because of their rightfulness with God. And their descendants murder, death, kill each other throughout the entire rest of the Bible. Canaan was cursed because of the actions of Ham, not because of the actions of himself. He was cursed because of Ham's actions. He was cursed to be a slave. And so he was a slave to his other brothers and blah, blah, blah. And he had his own descendants who became the Canaanites, who Shem's descendants, Moses, slaughtered his way through the Canaanites to get through. So... murder, death, kill. Far from the tree. Actually, the Bible opens with, Adam and Eve is created, then the two brothers are created, and one of the brothers kills the other brother for the love of God. That's really what happened. When you stop and look, that's what happened. God turned away from one and shunned him because of it. Or he didn't really even say why. He just in favor of the other one. So this brother kills that brother for God. And they've been doing it ever since. By the millions they murder, death, kill, murder, death, kill. And it doesn't start after the Bible is written. It starts during the Bible. They start murdering each other. The descendants of these people start murdering each other en masse. The people who founded Sodom and Gomorrah, descendants of Canaan. The descendants of Noah. You know what I mean? Also, all these people, murder, death, kill is just blood soaked. I mean, there's no.
So you have that. You have that omniscient issue.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he know this was going to happen?
And doesn't it say? I can't remember the verse off the top of my head, but something about the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or something to that effect. It's kind of like if that is the case, again, you're setting up, like you said, this domino effect where you're going to have the conclusion being murder, death, kill.
Absolutely.
And that takes me back to you'd have to say that the deity isn't choosing to do any of this. It has no choice. It's being forced to act in the way that it is, and regardless if it knows the outcomes or not. And if that's the case, then it's not omnipotent. And the jingle blocks start being pulled away, and the omnibenevolence, and etc. And like I said, it distills down to congratulations.
Omnibenevolence is a laugh. It's a joke.
You're worshiping determinism. Yeah. It's
yeah. Omnibenevolence, benevolism. That's like kindness everywhere. I don't see any of that in the Bible I've looked at. No.
Yeah, you can't have ultimate kindness and ultimate justice, because the justice would be,
pit of hell, pit of fire.
Right. Like mercy and justice.
Yeah, the ultimate benevolence does not create the pit of fire. I'm an okay kind of guy. I'm all right. I'm not a bad guy, but I'm not the best guy on the planet. I'm neither one. I'm just an okay kind of guy. And if people do me wrong, if I had the choice of whether I could simply blink them out of existence or put them into a burning pit of fire for eternity, I would choose the non-existence. I'm just like, boom, dude, I would have, tink, and you're gone. Dude, Mike, you pissed me off. Tink, you're gone. But the option is to throw you in a pit of fire because I'm a loving, merciful God. That's just a joke. But
remember, he's I'm just devil's advocate. No pun
you did
intended.
it yourself, right?
Yeah, right. You're approaching the both elevators.
But
One is massage and
that's right.
one is massage and tickles, and the other one is choose your own adventure here.
That's true. All right. And the other one could be blink yourself out of existence, but it's not. It's a burning pit of fire. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
If he was a benevolent God, it could be a lot of different things.
Yeah, so just
You
take
know,
your stamp and put it right here and mail
yeah,
yourself down to hell.
yeah.
So,
Mail yourself to hell. One way ticket. Well, there's the stairway to heaven is narrow. The highway to hell is wide. The song.
that's kind of the other thing I like to talk about is if in the we'll just stick with Christianity, for
Okay.
example. If Satan or Lucifer or the devil or whatever is the first to want equal rights,
Yes.
the very first to want equal rights, even before the God himself, right?
Mhm.
Is the first to want equal rights, and the outcome of that endeavor ended thusly.
Yeah.
Um, what does that say about the deity? Is it kind of it's a totalitarianism standpoint
Mhm.
from so creating you in its image. I mean, these are the things that they can't escape from. Is that they set up these problems where
Yeah.
if you're created in the image of the totalitarian that does not want equal rights,
Yeah.
then then that person should be an ichthyist, or at least be be I don't want to say an ichthyist is equating to not wanting equal rights, but I'm saying in
Right.
the sense of not pursuing the God or being humble to the deity, because
Mm.
they should also take that baggage as well. But anyway, that's
Well, there's just a lot. There's just a lot to it. This I just get off on this notion that there's this peaceful, merciful. Here's my book of mercy and love, and it's just dripping with blood, and they can't see that. And it is a blood cult.
pages get sticky.
It's a literal blood cult, and the things that go on in there. Not I really need to dive back into the New Testament. I haven't studied the New Testament in a while. I've been into the Old Testament, and my understanding is, of course, we don't talk about that. That's the Old Testament. That doesn't count. That's, God was mad. He hadn't had his Snickers. But, the way
Jesus
they
says not
talk,
a jot or tittle.
I'm sorry.
Jesus says not a jot or tittle of the old law
That's what he says.
shall,
Well, but
shall
part of,
change.
yes, that's exactly right. But then also God is everywhere, omniscient, everywhere. He's like everywhere. Jesus is the physical face of God, and God is
The spokesperson.
yes. And so, but I mean, Jesus is just a face. It's actually attached. It's attached. They are one and the same, but they're kind of different. But they're one and the same. But Jesus is God. Jesus is God. Therefore, Jesus kills babies. Jesus had sex with his own mother in order to have sex with himself. These kind of things start going into action. You know.
We created a meme 2 years ago or a year
Mhm.
ago, and it shows Jesus. And this is a little bit out there, so just bear with me. But
Okay.
it shows Jesus holding a newborn baby. Okay, and it's very cloudy, and
By
there's
the ankles.
light. No, it's just holding it up, and
Oh, okay.
just clouds and light, and just looks very very tranquil and shit. And the meme says, "You're going to nail me to the cross, and I'm going to send you to hell."
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
so
Well, if he knows at that point, right?
right, it's
Yeah, I thought it was going to be one of those. He's got the baby by the ankles and say, "Happy shall he be."
oh yeah. There's one of him taking a selfie, and he's got a hole in his hand, and we put upload all of your misery to the cloud. You know,
Hmm. There you go. Yes, I don't know. There's just this vast
it's on the
world of
cross. He's
memes. First and second cousins were perfect. All right, so unto the see, that's kind of interesting. What the people there's this little thing going on about the incest in the chat, and we do have. I see the whole preserve the bloodline. I get that. One thing that kind of happens though is they get to where there's too much incest. There's a lot of
yeah,
incest. They start
yeah,
having physical deformities and
deformities,
things
and yeah,
like this that just are right.
die out after. You know, I mean, have you seen that documentary about the person they're calling Papa Smurf? You can probably Google him. They had so much incest. They were just fucking all the time, and they started to come out blue.
Real, huh? Lack of oxygen or something? Some kind of a physical.
I don't remember the reasoning, but yeah, their skin pigment was blue. They had to have the children were blue. You just please look it up. Anyone watching this,
Papa
just
Smurf.
the Smurf people or Papa Smurf or Blue family, however you want to put it in Google. But yeah, they're and they were very sick all the time, and etc. The children or the grandchildren ended up being ashamed because it's like you're going to school and you're blue, and people are asking why you're blue, and you have to explain my family fucks each other. But they eventually were able to get some kind of procedure, some kind of something added to their bloodstream that would bring back their natural pigment. And then it would go away, and then they have to keep these little reloads, to keep their pigment from looking like Mystique from the X-Men.
Right. Well, there was, even back then, there was plenty of people around to avoid. I mean, the need to marry your own sister or marry one of the things it talks about is how Abram marries his sister and then leaves with his nephew. He marries his sister.
He's a player.
Well, it kind of seemed, I mean, he takes his sister with him, but it kind of sounds the dad was all pissed off that the son and daughter were nailing each other. So they just decided to elope and run away. But it also says he was 75 or something, 65 or 75 when he left his father's home.
He's trying to get a piece of the action too. I mean,
and then of course they go to Egypt and whores out his sister wife. Sister wife. I haven't heard that since I was back in the South. Sorry, people in the South. You own it, man. But ding, 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 ding. Anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of that goes on.
Kind of like the ancient Tinder. You have
singing "Love Me Tender" to a family member. That's a little awkward. You know what? I tell you what, it's been an hour. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go it's Friday, guys. I'm ready for the weekend. Me and the wife is off, and we're not going to do a lot because we're going to do it with each other somewhere else other than here. Cause I've been stuck at this house. I'm ready to get the hell out. So
yeah, backyard's calling me.
Yes, Mike. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. We'll have to get you back on and talk about other stuff too.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys again. Please check us out on Facebook.com/the1goodreason. That's the number one. We're trying to get our YouTube subscribes up there so we can get a custom link. I think it's at 100 or something like that. But right now we're at like 75. Mm-hmm. But yeah, please like and subscribe. Check out some of our videos. If you love them or you fucking hate them, please just tell us, and we'll either give you a thank you or we'll give you a middle finger. No, I'm kidding. We'll take that into consideration, and we'll it just help us improve the content of our videos or even the quality. So we again appreciate your time, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
And I'll be around if you need me.
Okay, yeah. Kristin is shilling your links out in the channel. She's got them out there for you, because she's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Ian, thank you. Hi, Ian. I don't know if I said hi to Ian. Anyway, Stidix, everybody, thank you all for joining us today. Have a good weekend. Tomorrow I'll be joined by Leanne Lord, and we're going to do some Sci-Fi Saturday. I haven't got a guest tomorrow. I'm not gonna put her through the whole discovery ring again. We're going to do something else. I haven't decided yet. We're going to do something fun though. So see you guys tomorrow.
It's going to be an alien, probably, huh?
Some kind of alien, some kind of something. Okay, guys, you guys take care. Have a great weekend. Be safe.
All right, bye.